off, all right? So you can stop it.
Yep.
I got it.
All right, thanks everyone for attending our Parks Recreation Waterfront Resiliency Committee meeting for October. Many of you are familiar with the Zoom procedure that we've had in place for quite some time. Daniel is the new Zoom facilitator for tonight. Just some quick things. I think we've repeated the procedure quite a few times, but generally when we are about to go to Q&A format, I will let the committee members speak first or ask questions first, and then we will go to the remaining public. We use the raise hand feature for any questions or comments. The chat only goes to the Zoom facilitator. It does not go to everyone. However, if a facilitator needs to provide a link or some information that they would like to share, you can send it to us and we will share it with the rest of the people in attendance. We try and stick with the 2-minute time limit for each person who's asking a question. However, I do not like to enforce that unless we think it's becoming a problem. So just like I say at every meeting, we'll see how it goes, but we ask you to respect your neighbors because your neighbors are here and they also want to speak. We have a busy evening tonight. A lot of things to cover. First thing we're going to do is ask for the approval of minutes or if there's any corrections to be made. Seeing none, I'll ask Ryan to go through our attendance.
Trevor Holland.
Present.
Kay Webster. Kay Webster. Ryan Gillum, present. David Adams.
I'm going to abstain. I didn't see the minutes.
Trevor, did the minutes go out?
Now that I think about it, I can't remember.
Actually, I don't remember seeing them either.
All right, let's hold off on the approval. We'll have to approve them next month, but let's go through attendance.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's correction. That's perfect.
Thank you. David Adams.
Otherwise, I'm here.
Yeah, so just present is fine.
Present.
You're on the Altman.
Present.
Arlen Shan.
Present.
Catherine Freed.
Present.
Valentina Jones.
Present.
Robin Chattel.
Present.
Daniel Tano.
Present.
Josephine Velez.
Present.
Troy Velez. Okay, and Kay Webster. All right, we're good.
All right, thank you. First up, we're going to go with the Parks Manager update. And I don't know if Jamil is, I assume he's on the phone. I'm going to allow extension 829 because I'm not sure if that's Jamil to speak.
Hi, Trevor, it's me.
Okay, gotcha.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So this past Saturday, we opened up Pier 42, which has a fitness area, outdoor fitness area, picnic area, tennis courts, basketball courts, and a soccer field. There's two entrance points, one on the ferry side, another one off of Montgomery. Typically, we open it up from 6 o'clock in the morning. We close at 6. So far, it's been well received by the public. A lot of people are using the tennis courts. I like to also note with the tennis courts are not permitted courts. So it's whoever comes first to get use it how long. We'll monitor throughout the day to make sure there's no kind of arguments. But so far, it's going well. We installed the 2 kiosks on Allen Malls, which so far has been going well. But unfortunately, we have been dealing with a large increase of drug activity and homeless on Allen Malls. On a positive note, we just recently received 6 full-time staff to the district and 2 CSAs that will also be full-time for the district, which is a great shot in the arm. We have more help, more support, and we've been able to spread them out throughout the district, so they're going to be well used. Lastly, this weekend we do have partnerships. It's My Parks Day. We have it at Tompkins, Henry Jackson, and also we have 2 areas at Sarah D that will be doing planning, hort cleaning, and just really cleaning up the park. That's my report.
Thank you. We'll go to some general questions from committee members, keeping in mind that if there are service requests to report into the office. I will add one thing, since the Pier 35 bus line is underneath your area, but in CB3, that there is a It's My Park Day at Pier 35 also for Saturday, October 15th.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Catherine has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, because I know a number of people have been out on Pier 32, but they said there's no signage as to how to get onto the, how to access it. Are signs going to be put up?
There's signage out there, but basically it's right next to the DOT plant. They're still doing construction, but there's a pathway leading from Montgomery with a giant green sign indicating it's Pier 32. You have to walk about, I would say, maybe 50 feet, and that leads you right into the pier.
And off the path from to the ferry, is there access and signs?
Yes, both sides. I believe there's a sign on both sides, yes.
I would check, because I had a couple of people said they didn't see signs.
Okay, I'll check tomorrow morning.
Great.
Thank you. Robin?
Hi, thanks. I just have a quick question. When do the sprinklers go off in the playgrounds? I don't know if it's all one date or different dates, because I've noticed a
So
few.
our plumbers, yeah, they prioritize. Our plumbers all going out. I got an email, I think it was Wednesday. They should be going out probably next week to do a shut off, because they winterize everything. So we have a plumber that comes to District 3, and he goes from park to park to park to winterize stuff that needs to be winterized and cut off water for the sprinklers.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Just wanted to thank you, Jamel, for all the extra work that you've been doing in the mall, in Allen Pike Mall, and also in SDR. Just understaffed, despite being understaffed. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. And thanks for that update. We'll move on to our next agenda item. And we haven't heard from about this in quite some time, so we're going to do a quick update on the street planning and bioswales for our community. I believe, Nicholas, introduce yourself, and you can you should be able to speak. And if you do need to present, Nicholas Zito.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. I was having some internet troubles. Can you all hear me okay?
Sure.
Nicholas Zito. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. I am Nicholas Zito. I'm the Deputy Director of the Tree Planting Program for New York City Parks. Got a couple of good updates that I think the group will be happy to hear as far as tree planting goes in Community Board 3. First and foremost, the folks here have probably been dealing with Haley Hicks, the ESCR project manager for tree planting. She has since been replaced by Vinny Irwand. He's going to be the new point person for all tree planting matters within the district for the Parks Department, and I'll share his email with the group after this meeting. He couldn't be here tonight. He's on vacation. I just wanted to remind everybody that since fall 2019, we've planted approximately 507 trees, street trees and park trees within Community Board 3. And as you're probably well aware, we haven't really been able to plant since last fall because we haven't had a dedicated contract for planting in this area. I am happy to announce that the dedicated ESCR contract has finally been awarded and is moving along in procurement. It hasn't yet been registered, meaning that we don't have an order to work date with the contractor, so they can't start any physical construction work yet, but we are planning for work to occur, planting work to occur during the upcoming fall season. As far as planting numbers, or expected planting numbers go, for the entire contract, just to remind everybody, it's a 2-year planting contract. We're expecting anywhere from 1,100 to 1,300 trees, depending on construction costs. For Community Board 3, for this upcoming fall, we're planning on planting approximately 200 to 250 street trees during the fall season. We're currently marking with the contractor, meaning that we're going out with the contractor, with the parks forester, Vinny, and is going in and actually laying out where we're expecting to construct the tree beds. So if you see white paint on the sidewalk, hopefully some of you have, they've been marking for 2 days now with the T in the center of the tree bed. That's where we are planning to plant the tree bed. And there should be decals and flags to notify that there's a tree plan for that location. So hopefully you guys have seen that. They're going to continue marking throughout next week. And then we expect to finish up the balance of marking within a week or so. Just to let everybody know, although we are waiting for registration in order to work, as you're probably familiar, there's a heavy DOT holiday embargo area in the Lower East Side. And even if we do get the contract registered in November, we have to coordinate with DOT to see if we could potentially work within the confines, or the constraints rather, of the holiday embargo zone. Because if the holiday embargo zone is in effect, we essentially can't do any heavy construction work until after January. So we're trying to coordinate with them on the side to see if there's anything that we can do to make sure that construction and tree planting can proceed. So that 200 tree number might change. It might stay as is. It might be dropped down to 100, or it might truthfully go down to 0, depending on when contract registration and that holiday embargo impacts planting plans there. So we'll keep you updated on that. We want to get planting as much as you guys do, but TBD, we'll keep you guys updated as we know more on that. And then just another reminder too, I'm not sure if Haley had previously informed you guys of this. We also have a small purchase contract that we're planning to plant within the ESCR area. And that's anticipated to begin in spring of 23, so next season as well. So we'll have kind of like a 2-pronged approach for planting within the district. And then I'm going to move on. Does anybody have any questions about tree planting before I get into green infrastructure? Because I'm actually filling in for somebody from the green infrastructure team too, and I'd like to address any planting questions first.
Let's finish your presentation and we'll go to questions after.
No problem. So I can't expand too much on this again, because I'm just filling in here for green infrastructure component of this. We have a contract. We're going to build 35 to 40 bioswales in the public right of way on the sidewalks. And that procurement process began in May. We expect the procurement process to take upwards of a year, followed by bid and then registration, which could be an additional 6 months before we're able to start constructing those. Many of the potential locations for the 5 stormwater green streets have been rejected due to conflicts with DOT proposed plazas, bike lanes, various MTA issues, and utility infrastructure. And DOT is currently reviewing a second round of potential locations, several of which required for the removal of parking spaces. And then the first 10 sites were submitted in the first round of review to DOT, and 5 sites were submitted in the second round of review. And that's it for the green infrastructure updates.
All right. Thank you. Just one couple clarifications before we go to questions from committee members first. You said in spring, the small planting. I'm not sure what you meant, or if I didn't understand you completely.
What happened?
I think we may have lost him for a second.
I'm just trying to, I apologize. I'm on the bottom floor right now, trying to go upstairs. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I just had a question on you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Would you?
But we can't hear you.
We'll give you a second to settle in because you've sort of faded out.
I think he dropped off all the way.
No, he's there.
No, there he is.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for him to.
Can you all hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
I'm
So
so
the first-
sorry.
Are you able to hear us now?
I could hear you, yes.
Okay, so the first clarification, as you mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, a small planting in the spring, and I was trying to figure out what that meant.
Oh, okay. So there's two separate contracts right now. We have 2-year contract that's dedicated for community board 3 and 6. And then we have another one that's going to be approximately $400,000, where we're going to plant around 120 trees. And those are going to be a different type of tree. So there's bald and burlap trees, and then there's a different type of material called grow bag trees. And it's going to be, we're experimenting with using city procured soils for that as well. So we're going to be planting those approximately 120 trees in addition to the 200 or so that we're expecting to plant on the other 2-year contract this fall. And I could send details and follow up in writing with exact numbers as well. But that's also dependent on procurement timelines.
Yes, if you could send that to the office, that would be extremely helpful. You said city procured soil. I didn't know what you meant by that.
It's soil that we have been, I guess I'll use the word manufacturing in-house to cut down on disposal costs and with contractors, and just try and streamline hauling of material to the locations and hauling away for debris disposal.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, if you want to raise your hand, I see Kay. Kay, go ahead.
Thank you. Just wondering, it wasn't clear to me, where are these trees being planted?
So I could send a site listing of planned locations after this meeting, of course, but numbers wise, if this is what you're asking,
No,
we have around 200.
no, I
sorry.
was just asking for the site, and there was an article in the city, I'm sure you saw that, how were these trees requested, or were they requested for specific sites? Or did Parks just decide where?
Yeah, so so Haley Hicks, the previous project manager for this project, had extensive discussions with the Greening Task Force and community members, and we're essentially surveying almost every single block that we could possibly plant. And that of course includes 311 service requests as well. So it's a little bit of a mix of both.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Daniel.
Yeah, so you said a number around 200 for this first contract, but for the whole project area or community boards 3 and 6, I feel like the number was like 1,000. Is that still the case for over?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So just to clarify, so there were 2 separate things. So there was the early 1,000 tree commitment that the Parks Department committed to planting on our existing contracts before this dedicated contract went into procurement. So out of that original 1,000, we're at like 650, I believe, for that. So we have 350 left, and that's what we were planning for the fall to complete that initial 1,000 tree commitment. And then the full contract, this 2-year contract in total, is going to plant an additional 1,000 trees. So we're aiming for a little over 2,000 for the whole project area. So this contract itself, we could plant 1,300 trees on, approximately anywhere from 1,100 to 1,300, depending on how construction comes out with the contractor that we've selected, because that's our engineer's estimates. And of course, we have to rely on their bid prices as well.
Okay, thank you. Catherine?
Yeah, thanks. I was just wondering on the street trees that are planted, because I've been reading a number of articles and they say a lot of them don't seem to survive. So I'm wondering what kind of follow-up you have on that after they're planted, and what, how do you check up on them and make sure they're surviving?
Excellent question. So our contracts have anywhere from a 1-year to 2-year guarantee, which essentially means that for the first 1 to 2 years after planting, The contractor is responsible for all establishment and maintenance work, which includes watering throughout the summer months to make sure that the trees are getting the water that they need to survive throughout the summer. That includes weeding, mulching, and then if a tree dies, they're required to replace it at the end of that guarantee period as well. So for that first period, the contractor is responsible for all that. And we have very heavy monitoring and oversight of all those establishment activities, specifically for watering. It's something we very closely track, have meetings with our contractors to make sure that the trees are establishing properly. And we actually, I'm not sure what article you're referring to, but we have some relatively low mortality numbers citywide over the last couple of years.
All right, thank you. Josephine.
Hi, I'm on Montgomery Street and the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and we have had quite a few planting of new trees, and maybe out of 7 that they've planted, maybe 4 have died. No one comes to take care of them. No one comes to water them. I walk my dogs every day and, kind of check the trees. Anyway, and I have called Parks and spoken with Haley and asked her to replace them because they've died. So your contractors aren't following up.
Okay, if you can, we can look into and see what's going on with those locations. I'm sorry to hear that.
So Josie, if you could send that to the office, and it will be forwarded to Nicholas or Parks Department. Because he's obviously not going to know exactly what
It's
street or block
Montgomery
you're
Street.
talking
Should I take, we've taken pictures and sent them to Haley. Even Frank has done that.
about.
Okay. This is like a repeat of everything. Okay.
I know, but it is related to what we're talking about, but it's more of a service complaint. So I'm really just trying to get an update on the new tree plantings. But since Nicholas is here and there is a replacement for Haley coming back from vacation soon, that we can create another loop and see if we can get those street trees taken care of.
Okay, so you'll send me his info, or how should I do this?
Send it to the office
Okay,
first, because I imagine that after this particular portion of the agenda, Nicholas is going to send us information and I'll pass it to everybody.
I'll send it to Susan. Is that okay, Susan? Okay.
Okay, thank you. I see some questions from the attendee list, and I'm going to go in this order, and I'm going to ask you to be brief in your questions so that we can, respect the time. I'm not going to put up the clock right now, but let's see how well that goes. So in this order, and just wait until I call your name, Wendy, and I'm going to butcher this name, sorry, Mehmet, April, and Billy. So Wendy first.
Hi, everybody. Oops. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that update. As the person who brought the draft resolution about street trees to CB3 on Valentine's Day of 2019, it's really heartening that so many of the trees have already been planted. I'm thrilled. But there was a second part to that, and it was about stewardship and education, getting more people involved in helping take care of the trees. And I don't hear, I know there's an event this Saturday, it's City of Forest Day, but I really love it if there's more education about these new trees. And we as a group, you mentioned the group that Hallie Hicks had brought together, worked on around the signage on the trees, to remind people no dog waste, etc. And I still see the old signs that don't say the species. There's I am a blank, and they're always blank. And I think even that would be helpful for people. I'll let you respond, and then I have a little bit more.
Sure. Thank you. Actually, that was actually at the bottom of my notes. I meant to bring up the event at the Lower East Side Ecology Center. So thank you. Just reminder everybody that's on Saturday, October 15th. As far as future stewardship events, that is something that we strongly encourage community members to get involved in. So again, thank you for bringing that up. Nicole Henderson of the Stewardship Program is looking to schedule a public event for November or December focused around tree care in this district. She's going to send over a link to me as soon as she has it. But in the meantime, you guys can, anybody who's interested can check out the advanced stewardship page on the New York City Parks website for information about how to get involved with stewardship events. But that is something that we're definitely actively planning to get the community to go. Those old heads, and yes, admittedly, a lot of the times our consultants out in the field and they're supervising the contractors, they just got lost and they didn't write down the species, and we apologize for that because, of course, it's a very important part of understanding the tree that's planted in front of your property. So
Yes, but if there's a code on there, maybe it's something that your person who comes around to check it can do, so that it's not left to the contractor.
Sure.
Because it's actually really important, and people, would like to know more about the trees or the native plants, etc. Speaking of which, a couple of years ago, you had a planting map on your website. Don't you have that still, so people can see what's planned in each of these rounds coming up, or is that not online yet?
We do. The tree work hub is live. That shows what plantings are and various other tree work is happening in all across the city, and residents, constituents can go and check to see wherever they're interested. And of course, there's also a map where you can track tree care activities for any specific tree that you adopt, they call it. Like, you can take care of a tree. I can send that information as well. But yes, there are various ways through this website that you guys could get involved for sure.
And I would love it if CB3 would help get the word out about these tree resources, and along the lines of community-based stewardship. Community gardeners are doing a discussion about tree care on Saturday at 3:30 at El Jardín on 4th Street. Yes, but I just want to say on the green infrastructure side, anything you do to make it more water permeable, stormwater permeable, is green infrastructure. And some of that is simply loosening up the soil under trees. And I'd like for this Parks Department to encourage more of that when we know rain is coming. Thank you, everybody. That's it.
Thanks.
Thanks. Mehmet?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So Nicholas, thank you. This is very encouraging news. I'm a resident and a board member on Tompkins Square Park at the Christodora House, representing all of our neighbors there. And we use the park quite frequently. We were just curious, and I know this is a big question for other members of the community that are on the call, is how many trees do you know are going to be planted in Tompkins Square Park? Because we have lost several 100-year-old trees, as well as trees on the street. And we've put in 311 requests for those trees to be replaced, and we haven't heard any news back. So I'm just asking on behalf of the residents of Tompkins Square Park.
Sure. Thanks for that question. So Manhattan Forestry actually brought it to our attention that there was communication and a strong desire for tree replacement to occur within the park. It's something that Vinnie Irwan, the project manager on this project, is well aware of, and no commitments on when, but it's something that we're actively planning for replacements either in the upcoming spring season or the fall. But we're well aware that replanting needs to happen within that park, and it's something that we're definitely looking at.
So Nicholas, nothing is earmarked then for immediate planting on the streets, for instance, on 10th Street, Avenue B, Avenue A, and 7th Street?
Admittedly, off the top of, without looking at the planting list, I can't say for certain, but I could certainly look at the site listing after this meeting. If you want to send a message to the group as well, I can find specifics on that. I mean, we could send a full site listing and anybody can take a look through and see wherever you're interested if we're focusing on your areas. But unfortunately, at this point, I don't have the listing in front of me. I apologize.
Nicholas, is that a web link or is that a document?
We could send a spreadsheet to you guys.
Okay, so it's not something that's accessible via web, because it's a little harder to distribute that if it's a spreadsheet.
No, it's not a web link at this point in time.
I can
I can
Go
put
ahead,
it
Susan.
on the website.
Okay, that makes sense. Susan took care of it.
Thank
So we'll
you.
put it on the website.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. April, and then we'll end with Billy and Ally. So April Summer.
Hi, this is April, and thank you for taking my question. I'm concerned with the planting of anything by the Parks Department because I walk my dog too every day, and I go down by the waterfront where the sanitation department is. All the vegetation there is dead. The grass is dead, the trees are dying, and I don't understand why, because when you put that in, it was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Now everything's dead. It's the same way along Pike Street when you redid the bike path there, and it was gorgeous. Now that's just some weeds growing and no one maintains it after. I didn't even know you had a contract where the contractor takes care of it for a couple of years. I didn't know that. They pulled out a lot of the when they weeded along Pike Street, they took out a lot of the plants and left grass. No one takes care of it. There's garbage there. There's some areas that are simply mounds of dirt. So when you replant these trees and when you do plantings, how can you guarantee that the Parks Department, when your contractor's time is up, that you're going to maintain it?
It's a good question, and that's why we, like Wendy had said earlier, it's something that we're trying to get the community involved in. Stewardship is a extremely important part of tree maintenance. As far as the scope of tree planting contracts specifically, maintenance itself is out of the scope of those specific contracts, but we're exploring ways to look into caring for these tree beds. But
well, this isn't anything new. Like you know, you're going to have to do this. This isn't a surprise to you that after the contract's over, you're going to have to take over and do it, and no one does it. And it's not a surprise that you're going to have to care for these parks, but you don't do it. And I don't understand that, because it was beautiful. It was gorgeous. It was a fantastic job. All of these places looked so amazing. And I was so proud to be part of a community that had these kinds of beautiful areas. Now they look horrible. And looking into it doesn't answer the question of how will you maintain it going forward? It's not a surprise that you're going to have to maintain it. I don't understand why you don't know.
we could respond back with stewardship efforts for the future and any maintenance efforts. But for right now, I don't have any comments on that.
I'm sure you don't.
All right, thank you. April, I'm going to move on to Billy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi.
you can.
So the reality of the tree contracts, I believe, is 2-year or replacement, but it's cheaper for the contractor. It's very expensive to go around watering 200 trees with a water truck. It's cheaper for them just to replace like 30 or 40 trees out of the 100 at the end of the 2 years, and they'll still make a profit. So it's not even after 2 years that they're going to be watered. Watering is crucial or they're going to be dead, especially with the new heat and the drought. So I mean, as Wendy and everybody's saying, it has to be stewardship or Parks Department, or the contract says not 2-year warranty, that it has to be watered for 2 years specifically, because it's cheaper for them just to replace the dead trees and still make a profit. That's why they double the price of the trees. So, I mean, the contract really doesn't mean anything unless it says they have to keep them watered. Honestly, otherwise, I don't see how it works unless really the stewardship of the buildings and engaging people. But if they're, like the owners and the business owners, it really needs to be a coordinated effort. Otherwise, they won't make it, as everybody's been saying. But the contract, 2-year contractor replacement, it's cheaper for them to do the replacement. And so the stewardship is crucial, and maybe the signs also say, please keep me watered. But and the other thing is, I'm curious about the caliper of the trees. And did you say there was B&B and container grown? And
So the small contract that's coming out, we're planning to do the 2-year contract is going to be bald and burlap trees. The smaller contract that's coming up, hopefully in the spring, we're exploring what are called grow bags. They're not necessarily container trees.
grow bags.
They're
Okay.
fabric bags, but that's about all I can provide at this point in time because we have to get all that sorted out as far as material sourcing. But the primary plantings are going to be bald and burlap trees.
At what caliper?
Between 2.5 to 3, and then 3.5 to 4.
So it's a mix.
Yeah, I can actually.
Because it's copious amounts of water when they're first planted, and they really need so much water in the beginning.
I apologize, actually. I'm just looking at the scope estimate now. Most of the plantings are going to be 3.5 to 4 inch on this.
Oh
So
my
the
goodness.
larger caliper. Now, I do want to, if I may, as far as watering, I need to reiterate that we take watering very seriously. And you mentioned that it's cheaper for a contractor to just let the tree die than to water it. As
For 2 years.
As deputy director, I'm personally responsible for sending out all the watering notices to contractors, holding watering meetings and holding the contractors accountable, sending bi-weekly watering reports to our contractors that we're monitoring on a regular basis, and holding those contractors accountable. And when they sign their contracts, they're not just signing a contract that says, I'll do this, this, and this. There's an explicit article in the contract that they're affirming and they're putting their signature to, that they're going to follow the watering requirements of the contract. So
that's fantastic.
Like I said, this is something we take seriously, and all these measures that we've taken over the years is like, yes, we need to we've realized that we needed to do a better job about tracking watering and holding contractors accountable for watering, which is why we introduced those metal tags that you see on the trees. And now that's why we have this cloud system where we could track all the waterings of our contractors. Like I said, it's something we really do mean when we say we take it extremely seriously, because without water, your trees are not going to establish properly. We all know that. And it's something that me and the director and our entire program and the whole agency, that's one of our primary focuses after a tree is planted, especially during these last drought conditions that we had. We were very heavy on monitoring and making sure that the contractors were complying.
That's so encouraging. Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Billy, we're going to move on just because we spent quite a bit of time on this. Allie, you can wrap it up and then we'll go to committee. Allie?
Okay. Hello. Thank you, Trevor. I have two questions, but they're about two different things. The first one is to follow up Mehmet's question about Tompkins Square Park, is that there is no irrigation in the park. So I'm also reiterating what Billy says too, that since there's you have to garden, like when you actually have a hose that you're like, the gardener is hand watering plants. So is it possible to consider putting in an irrigation system into Tompkins Square Park? Because we've lost six ancient trees, like over 200 years old in the past couple of years. And in fact, today I'm going to put in a 311 request and a CB3 request to examine another tree that looks like it's dying, another ancient tree that's dying in Tompkins Square Park. But that's one thing to think about. And then the second thing, I do live near Tompkins Square Park too. And today I just saw a tree that has a sign on it saying that it's there's like rat control going on. And in the tree pit, you can see well-established rat burrows. And so that's my next question is like, how are you, like, rats are up in Community Board 3. It's well-known fact. How do you handle the rat situation when you're planting new trees?
Good question. So firstly, though, I don't know if it's so much a question as more of a statement, but for the irrigation systems, unfortunately, that's not something I'll be able to answer because that's not in my purview of the tree planting program. So I apologize that but our contractors, while they're watering, they come in with big trucks with 500 to 1,000 gallon tanks. So at least for the establishment period for those, they'll be able to take care of the irrigation on those. As far as rats, I'm well aware that rats continue to be a problem in tree beds, among other things in the city. When we're planting, we don't have any preventative or active measures that we take to deter rats. That's not currently within the scope of our work, but that's something that the Department of Health and Department of Sanitation, I assume, are working on. But again, from my program's perspective, it's not something that we immediately concern ourselves with when we're planting the tree. But I am acknowledging that I hear your concerns. I'm not trying to minimize them. But from a planting perspective, that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. And I see David, you have your hand up if you want to wrap this up. Go ahead, David. David Adams. Okay.
Oh, okay, I got it. And when we had the bus stop shelters, we took a timestamp when maintenance was taking a picture. Why can't they do that when they water the trees?
They do, actually. Our new system that we developed in-house actually requires contractors to take photos of all maintenance work. And originally, we were requiring them to take watering shots, but it becomes quite a data hog. So it's something that we're still trying to figure out how to work around, but it is something that we have the
Well,
capability of.
if they're at the tree, they might as well give it water.
They might as well. I agree. Yes.
Thank you. Nicholas, I have one last question regarding the bioswale, since there were no questions on that. And when we initially talked about the 30 or 40 that was coming to the Lower East Side, this was before the whole sort of sheds or restaurant sheds, or like, you know, before they established themselves on the street, which I imagine a lot of the streets now are full of these sheds, which will basically preclude them from getting one of these bioswales. Is that a consideration, or is DOT rejecting a lot of these because of these sheds?
Very good question, and I apologize, Trevor. I'm not going to be able to answer that directly since I'm not work. I'm taking notes here though, and I'll field that question to the director tomorrow and see if they can answer that. I would assume that that's something that's being taken into consideration, but again, I can't say for certain.
No, I'm just raising that point because some of the sites that were suggested were really good sites, but I imagine a lot of them, especially in parts of, you know, Avenue A, Avenue B, Avenue C, are no longer available just because of the street takeover. But that's just something to consider. But thank you, Nicholas. If you could send that information to the board as soon as possible, Susan can post that information on the website so people have access to it. But we appreciate your time and this updated information. But it is good news to know that we're getting, you know, nearly or at least 2,000 trees in our community district. So thank you again.
Absolutely, and thank you guys for everything you do for advocating for trees. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, and have a good night. All right, next. We're going to do the ESCR, the parallel conveyance update that many folks have requested. Desiree, I imagine you're going to need to screen share.
Yes, please.
Desiree, I don't know if you have the ability now.
I know host disabled participant screen sharing.
Can you give her screen sharing ability?
It's not coming up in the options for me. Give me 1 second.
Oh, I think I can do it now.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Desiree Gazzo. I am the Community Engagement Lead for the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Program. I'm here tonight with colleagues from DDC and our Program Management, Construction Management Team, H&TB Lero, to present on the parallel conveyance portion of the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project. So we are not here tonight to speak to Project Area 1 and Project Area 2, which we have in the past and will be next month. However, we are here today to just give a very quick update on parallel conveyance. Okay, perfect. So here is the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project area. Everyone should be familiar with this, but I will just review it because again, we are now talking about the parallel conveyance part, which we haven't really spoke to much recently. So the area in the red here or orangey-ish color is Project Area 2, which is well underway. Project Area 1, which is primarily East River Park and a small portion of Corlears Hook Park. Again, very much so underway. And the parallel conveyance, which is the red lines that are more so within kind of the community areas or along the local streets. Within Project Area 1 and Project Area 2, that is the parallel conveyance. So again, here is just the same map that we just saw, but it only has the portions of work that are within the specific parallel conveyance project. So just a quick project overview for parallel conveyance. Parallel conveyance is being treated more as a typical DDC infrastructure project. So there is an REI services, which is a little different than program management, construction management services, which is what you've been used to me saying for Eastside Coastal Resiliency. Nonetheless, the REI services is the oversight to the contractor. So the REI services are being provided by an engineering firm called STV Incorporated. The contractor on the project was awarded in May, which we've provided updates on, and that was to NYCC JPL JV. And then notice to proceed was issued September 13th of 2022. So construction start is anticipated in winter 2022, and then the construction duration is approximately 4 years. Just a quick overview of the kind of difference between the parallel conveyance and then Project Area 1 and Project Area 2. The parallel conveyance optimizes the existing drainage and infrastructure, drainage infrastructure and stormwater system. The parallel conveyance work consists of sewer upgrades within the city streets, which we just saw on the map. There are 2 interceptor gates and 2 buildings, which will have very deep excavations, and there's as well some deep manhole excavations. There are potential street and or sidewalk closures, detours, and water main shutoffs with this project. Again, we do not have the specific information today to share. We just wanted to, again, give an overview, provide a quick update, and then once the schedule and the phasing of this project is available, we will come back with more information. So the parallel conveyance, again, is the blue area, which is on the street side. So that's the sewer upgrades, which will protect from heavy rainfalls during storm events. And then the Project Area 1 and Project Area 2, which is the orange side or the river side of the wall, will protect from coastal and tidal flooding and storm surge. So the typical community impacts, we did just name a few on the other side. But just to get into a little bit more detail, again, there will be detours and lane closures, and those will all be communicated through the advisories and the bulletins. Again, both vehicular and for cyclists and pedestrians. Signage will be posted in advance within the affected work areas. As determined, there will be either traffic enforcement agents, crossing guards, and flaggers when necessary to assist vehicles and pedestrians. Public transportation will be maintained. Again, if there's any revision or movement of any of the public transportation in the area, there will be an advisory of that as well, and signage. Emergency vehicles, of course, will have access, and that will all be coordinated with NYPD and the fire department. During water service interruptions, there will be, again, notification given, and there's typically a test done prior. So DDC will follow standard protocol for all of these items, and it will be heavily coordinated with the community construction liaison. Again, this type of a project is more is actually more common to DDC than per se the rest of the ESCR project. So again, this is more like a typical DDC infrastructure project. And then of course there's the community, the environmental monitoring, which is again pretty consistent with the Eastside Coastal Resiliency project, and that will be on the website as well. So again, we will come back with more information as we receive that to share. We also want to introduce our parallel conveyance community construction liaison. As you know, for each of the projects within Eastside Coastal Resiliency, there is a community construction liaison. So Tanya, if you're on the call, which I think you are, Trevor, do we have to have permission to unmute Tanya?
Yes,
So she can just introduce herself.
Yeah, let's see if we can find her. And Dan, you let me know if you spot it.
I just allowed them to talk.
Okay.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Wakun. Thanks for having me.
Tanya, if you could, I know we see your background on the screen, but if you could just let us know what your background is, just to give people an understanding of, what experience you have.
Well, my name is Tanya Wakun. I represent the DDC as a CCL. I work as a CCL for 4 years. I work in a Major Deacon Expressway and also in Washington Heights with water main. And right now, I just want to say pura vida to everybody. For those who do not know its meaning, it's a Costa Rican saying, happy pure life to everybody.
Okay, thank you. Nice to meet you. This is a very calm community. I'm sure you won't get a lot of phone calls or emails, so welcome. But thank you, and we appreciate you joining us this evening, and we'll see you soon.
Looking forward to work with each and everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. So similar to Nadine and Joyce and Sonia, Tanya will be, again, kind of boots on the ground and in the community and responding to project inquiries, etc. So we will have her information available as well as the parallel conveyance project begins. So again, we're not doing a full presentation on parallel conveyance. We've given many of them, and we just wanted to summarize again, this presentation will be available on the Eastside Coastal Resiliency website tomorrow. And these are all clickable links, which show There's the PDC presentations, which show renderings of the interceptor gate buildings. The pages are there as well. There were presentations previously given to both the community boards and the CAG on parallel conveyance. There's the animation, which there's a link here as well. And then there were some CAG inquiry responses and the presentation that was done with DEP. So there are many parallel conveyance resources online. And then again, once we know the schedule of the work, we will come back with that. So the last slide quickly, we just wanted to share that the Eastside Coastal Resiliency is having a Work With Us event on October 19th, which is next Wednesday, I believe, from 4:30 to 6:30 at Tompkins Square Library. We invite everyone to join the ESCR team in person. We're very excited because this is the first Work With Us in-person event that we've been able to have. We tried having one last winter, and again, COVID just got in the way. So we will have masks and sanitizer available, but we will be indoors just in case of the weather. And we will be launching our Career Pathways program. So we'll be sharing career resources, providing information on opportunities, and then kind of introducing the folks that attend to the job possibilities or to the types of jobs that are on the Eastside Coastal Resiliency and other DDC resiliency projects. So we will be joined by DDC's Office of Diversity and Industry Relations, the Eastside Coastal Resiliency contractor representatives, Lesson, Henry Street Settlement, and I think the New York City Small Business Services. I'm not 100% sure if they confirmed. So there's a RSVP or registration on the flyer here. And we've sent out the flyer through the news blasts or through the e-blasts. So if you're not signed up, please visit on the website to get those updates. We'll be using the same distribution of information as Project Area 1 and Project Area 2. So if you are currently not receiving project information, we send it out typically every Friday. An email goes out. If you're not receiving those, then you will also not receive parallel conveyance information. So please go to the ESCR website and sign up for newsletters and project information. DDC will also be participating in the 28th Annual Competitive Edge Conference, so that information is here as well. Just a few positions that are open are here on the screen, and you can go to the Work With Us page, which is part of the contact page on the ESCR website for the job descriptions and to apply. And that's what we have on parallel conveyance.
All right, thank you, Desiree. We'll pull up the list. Committee members, questions, and keep in mind we are talking about for tonight parallel conveyance. Okay, if there's members of the public that would like to ask a question on parallel conveyance, please raise your hand. We will have just keep in mind that we've done a lot of updates, and we will have further updates as this project moves forward. Seeing none, thank you, Desiree, for the presentation on parallel conveyance.
Great, thank you.
And from my list, it looks like you're also going to be, I'm not sure who's doing the BMCR update.
I think Q is on, and I think he's going to lead that update, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Trevor. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Q. Do you need screen sharing?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Wasn't prepared to jump right into it without any questions.
Hey,
I'm not going to jinx it. Never mind. Did not say that.
You should be good to screen share now.
And if anyone does have questions, again, if they come up, please there's the inquiry tool that you've been using for Project Area 1 and Project Area 2 on the website. You could use that as well. And Tanya will start helping respond to any parallel conveyance questions. Sorry, Q, go ahead, all you.
No worries. Give me one moment. Let me get the camera running.
And I think we're also seeing your, it's not in presentation mode, just to let you know.
Sure. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm sure almost everybody here knows me, but my name is Q Amiri. I'm with the Department of Design and Construction, New York City DDC Coastal Resiliency Unit. Our unit has all the coastal projects here, East Side Coastal, and now the Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery Coastal Resiliency Project. We call it by the acronym BMCR. This project was under the design phase. It was handled by our sister agency at EDC, Economic Development Corporation, colleagues there, under the direction of the mayor's office, and came over to our agency at DDC for construction. And we just wrapped up procurement phase. I'll just give a quick overview as a refresher. I'm sure everybody's familiar at this point, but just in case we have new folks in the group, and also give a quick update on where we are right now with regards to the construction phase that has not fully started just yet. So just a quick overview. This is the location of this project. You see the bubble diagram here on the right side. The boundaries is from Montgomery Street, the southern end of the East Side project, where that project leaves off. BMCR picks up and goes down to Brooklyn Bridge area, and it's that stretch up on the waterfront. The rest of the projects here on the diagram, we're not addressing those tonight, but just to give some context to the overall project, that this is part of the larger LMCR, Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency efforts and initiative. This is another site plan. The project includes flip-up gates, roller gates, fixed structure, and a lot of community amenities and programs that many folks were, I'm sure we all remember, and involved during the design phase. I just mentioned this. We took over from EDC for construction, and we'll be coordinating very closely with EDC folks and Mayor's office, and also other colleagues at other agencies, DEP or DOT as we need to. We're anticipating about a 4-year construction timeframe. And I'll just tie that into this slide. So here's the real quick update that we have. We have a program management, construction management, PMCM team similar to the East Side project. We have Jacobs GPI joint venture, who's leading the PMCM contract and efforts for us. And we just issued the contract, the construction notice to proceed to contractor John Picone, and that was just about a couple of weeks ago. And we're anticipating construction to begin winter this year. Notice to proceed is the official start for construction. However, construction start with our projects usually has different definitions for different groups. For community members, residents, anybody out on the streets, day-to-day, and interruptions and disruptions, that won't be coming for another couple months until these next steps are completed by the contractor. So now that the contractor has their green light to get started, they're proceeding with getting their staffing plan together, finding a field office. They need to order materials. There's a list of plans that need to be submitted to DDC, a standard process for DDC to review and approve. Part of that is a construction schedule that we don't have just yet. The construction phasing plan, if that is applicable for this project, and if they're proposing a phasing plan, we'll review that and let everybody know. Agency coordination, any permits that they need to pull from DEP or any other entities as needed. And after once all that is done, then that also includes other documents such as the erosion and sediment control measures, their plans for removing the site furnishing, and other equipment and hardscapes, and also staging areas and defining the construction boundaries. All those details, I'm saying all this just to say these are all layers of construction details that are step-by-step coming to us at DDC, and we'll keep coming back to the community board every time we have an update to share with everybody and give everyone an advance notice. So the main takeaway is that the contractor has their official go-ahead, and we're not anticipating major construction closures or detours, anything of that sort, at least for another month or two, probably until the turn of the year. But we'll keep everybody updated within the next few weeks as we move forward. This slide just maps out the step-by-step standard process for any DDC project that we have between notice to proceed and the official day of major construction. There's a list of steps that need to be taken in between. Most of them I already mentioned. Once the contractor checks off in DDC, once we all check off certain boxes that I just showed earlier on the previous slide, then we go into mobilization and site preparation. This includes pulling up their equipment, fencing off the area that they've previously told us as far as the construction footprint, and we've all agreed upon. If there's a phasing plan, then we discuss all that and approve it. So all that will be coming in the next month or two, and will lead to major construction as we move forward. And last slide, all that to say, as usual, and especially we've all seen with the Eastside project, and Desiree and HNTB Lero, our team here, will notify everybody well in advance, elected officials, community board, the public at large. There will be advisories on websites, social media announcements, flyers. Everything is standard process as we have been doing, or as the DDC and the PMCM team has been doing so far for the past couple of years on the Eastside project. And I do want to mention that moving forward, Desiree here would be the lead for our engagement for the BMCR as well, to keep things consistent in the interest of continuity. So she will be overseeing the community engagement efforts for all of the Eastside project and BMCR here, so the two can be connected with a common thread under one umbrella. That's all we have. This is the project website. We'll be in the next month or so, maybe in the next couple months, we'll start updating the project website slowly with different sections. Most likely not as in-depth as the Eastside project website, depending on the content and the sections that we'll have, but you can expect to see updated materials on the website pretty soon in the rest of this year. And as usual, presentations, materials, everything will get uploaded, and future announcements will be up on the website as well. That's all I had.
All right, thank you, Q. I'm going to go to the committee members first in terms of questions. Okay, I have a couple. I'm not going to ask them all tonight, but I do have a few. The first thing is that we need to make sure and to ensure pedestrian safety. I know that the DBE portion is under construction, or a portion of that was done, but it's now forcing pedestrians and bikes in the same path. And I know the community board has received some complaints about the danger of that, because it is a very dangerous situation. We've actually written at least 2 resolutions out of this committee regarding pedestrian safety. And if you look at the survey that they did before the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade, the #1 concern was pedestrian safety. And I've often said that that's been ignored to a certain extent. I don't really understand why in a city that's walkable, why we don't pay more attention to pedestrian safety. In the lower portion, the area from Montgomery to Pier 35, we've been trying to get those vehicles cleared from the sidewalk, the only sidewalk on that side. There was a brief clearing, but now they're back. And the reason why I think this is going to be extremely important is across from that, you're going to have 4 massive towers potentially going up, and there's nowhere for people to walk. You add that to the fact that a tourist bus comes every 15 minutes and drops off a couple hundred people onto those sidewalks mixing with the bike. So I think we need to make that a priority. I don't think it's very difficult to do. I just think that no one's really paying attention to it, and probably won't pay attention to it until something happens. So that's my first comment.
Thanks for that. That's a good flag. You're right. It's not difficult to do, but luckily our agency is experts with that, especially with pedestrian and site safety. We have an entire division dedicated to that, and they get heavily involved in all these documents that need to be reviewed and every measure that needs to be set up ahead of time. So I think the East Side project, the team has done a great job at addressing that. I'm not aware, unless you folks are, because I haven't been joining the community board meetings lately for the East Side, but I think that the contractors and our PMCM team and DVC, the entire team has been doing a great job at being careful with the closures and being very conscious of everybody's route and safety and all those preventative measures. So we'll definitely take this back and re-emphasize with the contractor as we're meeting with them, setting up their construction plans.
Right, and if we get some immediate remediation at the area that's closer to the Brooklyn Bridge, because that is a mixing zone of hundreds of people, and not just bicycles, but electric bikes and motor scooters and everything else, all sharing the same pathway.
Yeah, this one is going to be a little more tricky than the East Side. I'm thinking, well, PA1, not to minimize it, but it was a little easier because it was a stretch of the park and you just have that shared path. But PA2 in the middle of the community with the blocks and intersections, that was a little tricky, but BMCR is going to be a little harder too. So it will take a little more thought to carefully plan this out, considering how congested that area is, like you said, and tourists coming in, residents, businesses, there's very little open space in that area. So we'll definitely be cognizant of all that.
Right, we can send them again, but if you take a look at our resolutions, which came out of this committee regarding pedestrian safety and signals that can make it a little more safer for people.
Okay.
My last comment is about the construction, which we anticipate will start in the winter, and that area, as you know, is well used throughout the year. I mean, people don't slow down once it gets cold out there. There's literally hundreds of people dancing underneath the Esplanade area on any given day. So we need to figure out a way, and I know you mentioned phasing, but we really haven't discussed it, primarily because we really kind of focused on ESCR. So if we can make sure that's part of the discussion going forward, so the entire space is not completely cut off for people to use, and that we maintain access to several points, including Pier 35, which will not be impacted directly from the construction, but we may have to figure out ways to make sure people can get to that spot easily, and also Pier 36.
Yeah, absolutely. Once we receive the contractor's initial plans and better understand how they're going to manage their operations, we'll be able to have those discussions and come back to you folks and shed more light on it.
Right, thanks. Robin.
Robin, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Nice to see you.
Hi, Robin.
Nice mustache. I just wanted to back up what Trevor said, because actually as a biker, I was incredibly surprised the other day when I was biking north and came across the construction, and there's no signage at all. So that's another thing. Signage is something I'm always asking for. Desiree knows that, not just a detour sign, but perhaps when you're thinking about pedestrian safety, you could think about bicycle safety, and maybe perhaps the street has to be designated a bike lane, portion of it, so that the pedestrians that were not sharing the pathway. Because as a biker, there's no way to stop when you're suddenly coming around a corner and you're meeting groups of pedestrians, and a lot of them are tourists who are trying to find the Brooklyn Bridge and South Street Seaport. So that was a big shock for me the other day as a biker. I wanted to point that out as well. If there's something could be done on that end to separate us from pedestrians, that'd be great.
Definitely will do. And signage is absolutely part of their scope. So you'll see all those going up. But yeah, and thanks for that. If any of you see anything missing as far as signage or the routes or anything that's not safe, if you feel like the safety measures are not being followed, please immediately reach out to us and let us know.
Great. Well, certainly now I don't think they are, but I know that's another project, but thanks.
Thank you. And Q, one more thing. I know we've done some outreach regarding the project itself, but I don't think people really know this is about to start. So if we could think about how to get the word out before this starts, other than just the typical notices. I'm just thinking of the people who are using that space every day, and all of a sudden there's going to be a construction fence up. And I don't know if you're doing any outdoor, setups where you just set up a table and particularly tell people about it. But I think if you, and we can discuss this later, if we can figure out a way to do, maybe spend a couple of days out there and let people know if the construction is about to start.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Trevor. We wanted to hold off until we have a more meaningful sort of response. Right now, everything is still a little tentative or unknown, not knowing the schedule exactly, the project boundary, the construction footprint, where exactly the fences are expected to go up, if they have a phasing plan, all these little details. Once they come up in the next month or two, I think you have a good idea there to what we can think about tabling ideas, events, or reaching out to community groups one-on-one and giving everybody a briefing.
Okay, thank you.
Q, if I could just add, there will be a community construction liaison dedicated to this project also. So
right,
just to add to that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, not on board yet, but again, like we just did with the PC package, definitely we'll introduce that person.
Thank you. All righty. Val.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what we're talking about between Montgomery to a little past Clinton, because I walked over there this weekend too. I walked over to Pier 42 and then was walking down to my nephew's house, which is on Rucker Street. And so I said, I'll just walk this way. And my thing isn't so much signage as something that divides where you're walking from the cars and the bikes. It almost didn't seem like there was much of a, there wasn't much of anything that divided it, like a fence or something kind of built up that said, this is where you walk versus this is where you drive your car. If it wasn't so many people out there, I would have felt dangerous. So, I'm not sure. I think this is what Trevor is talking about, but for me, it's not so much signage, it's something that divides the people that's walking from the cars that's on the, that's going on the highway.
Definitely noted on those barriers, but Val, where was that you mentioned? Montgomery and Clinton?
Yeah, between I was walking from Pier 42. I went over to Pier 42 to look at the tennis court, the field, all of that. That all had signage, and then I was walking down the Rucker Street from there. So I was walking, say, Montgomery Street, I was walking to Rutgers. But I think that once you get a little past Clinton, like right across the street from Lands End 2 is where it stops. But between Montgomery and a little past Clinton, you're walking and the cars are right next to you and they're coming in the opposite direction so that you clearly see them. Or rather, let me just say I was going in the opposite direction because I was going from Montgomery down to Rutgers.
Okay. I'll take this back. Desiree, I don't know if that falls in the ESCR, current ESCR construction footprint, or maybe
BMCR.
It was another. It's within BMCR. Okay.
Yeah, because it's Montgomery down to Rutgers.
Oh, Montgomery down. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't sound like, well, we're not there yet. We're physically not out there on the street yet, but for future reference, I know what you're saying. We'll definitely mention this to the contractors and make sure they're on top of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people walking there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have one question from Tommy and then we'll wrap this up. So Tommy, go ahead.
I'm sorry, my question was from the last segment. You didn't see my hand that was up.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, well, Desiree is still here, but maybe Desiree, you can just make sure that everybody's aware, and maybe you can explain that, like with Hurricane Ida and just with Ian, even the parallel conveyance only will protect the community from a 1.75 per inch rainfall. And maybe either you or Q could explain what is going to happen if we get more than 1.75 inches per rain.
Thanks, Tommy. You know, I think we've had lots of conversations on the capacity of parallel conveyance, and DEP has spoken specifically to that. And that's why we have all of those resources up in the previous presentation. So I would encourage folks to, you know, to visit those presentations. Again, like many projects in the city and around the world, they are designed to a certain storm level. And then, you know, what may happen surpassing that storm, you know, that is something that, you know, it's meant to, these are flood protection measures. It will definitely help protect the community, again, more so than the lack of flood protection that is there now. So this is, you know, again, a significant improvement for the neighborhood. The FEMA flood lines, again, will now be pushed back more. We have the maps that show where the new lines will be. I know Q has the BMCR one on here. I didn't have the new FEMA flood line where that would be at 2050 on ours, but it is a significant improvement for the city. And again, you know, I don't think there's anything, and I'm not an engineer, but that is a foolproof system. Again, ESCR is one part, BMCR is another part, and as the rest of the resiliency projects that you see here on the screen get built, it will just protect more and more and more of Manhattan. So I think that's as much Q, unless you have anything else to say, but I think, you know, for more specific, I guess, scientific response, you can go back and look at the EDC presentation that I have the links for. That will be up on the website. Well, they're up there now, but if you want the direct link, it will be on from this meeting, it will be on the presentation tomorrow, on the website tomorrow.
Thank you, Desiree, and thank you, Q, for that presentation. I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more from you. Just a word to committee members, and if there's a possibility that we'll be meeting in person for next month. But I know I've been saying that for the last 3 or 4 months, but that may actually happen, just to keep that in mind. And we will probably move back to a update on ESCR, PA1 and PA2. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So committee members, so it's now 7:55, so we're pretty good on time. And I knew we were going to finish early, but not this early. So we're going to start on district needs, or at least to confirm our district need once again, and capital and expense priorities. Susan's already on. So
sure, yeah, I've been waiting. So thank you. So very briefly, we're voting tonight on the district needs and budget priorities. I won't go over district needs at all because we finalized that in the summer, but we're voting on them together. So tonight we're looking at the budget priorities. We have, for the whole community board, we have 25 expense priorities. We have 40 capital priorities. These are for the next fiscal year, which will be starting next July. The expense priorities are generally things like staff salaries and programs. Capital priorities are things like reconstructing a park. Most of our capital priorities for CB3 have always been mostly parks. The ranking is important because we will get all the capital priorities on, but there's only 25 priorities for the whole community board for expense. They will be collated together to have one list. And so the bottom ones, every year, some bottom ones fall off because there's always a need for more than 25. These priorities have all the things that are on the list for you to look at have all been researched. I think Trevor sent out the list from last year with the agency responses on them. Trevor and I also met with Parks Department to go through the current status of all funding. And sorry, am I leaving anything out, Trevor?
No, other than we need to go over some of the responses that, I mean, there's some agency responses, but there's some responses that are not necessarily in the agency response that have to do with the listing. But we can go into that once we look at the listing. Just want to remind.
Happy. So the responses, you know, there's a lot have changed since the responses. Those responses, even though they're on the adopted budget from January, they were actually written last fall. They were written by a different administration, and things have changed drastically since then. So, but we went over almost everything with Parks just 2 months, or not even 2 months ago. So we do have current status of everything.
And
So
just keep in mind, committee members, that we did go over that. We go over this every year. If you think about it, there shouldn't be too much movement unless something is funded or continues to need funding. Because if we play around with the list too much, we wind up just creating a whole new list and forgetting the reasons why we put things into place in the first, and when we first started this. So if you want to go over it now, Susan.
Well, do you want to share, screen share the priorities? I think it would probably be a lot easier if we did.
You're gonna have to give me a minute to do that.
Okay, and I also want to say the list of priorities from last year this is the ranking that you did last year. So it's the last ranking, and I'm trying to think. I'm sorry, lost my train of thought. Oh yes, the other thing is when they're collated, the board will not change your ranking. They may put something between 5 and 6, but if they will not change the order of your ranking. So your top ones will always be the top ones, even if they're not 1 or 2 or 3. They'll still be the top park ones. Does that make sense? Did I explain that well?
Well, it makes sense to me. I just hope it makes sense
Yes,
to you.
you already know.
Yes.
Someone said yes.
I'm just trying to pull this up. I wasn't ready to share my screen.
And I believe there's, for expense while we're doing it, based on our meeting with Parks, we have one new one to suggest the committee add. While we're waiting for you to get that up, I just may want to mention to someone, you know, Parks is still very short-staffed, but the reason right now that they're short-staffed is not because of funding. It's because Parks, like all the other agencies, including the community boards, can't hire people. People are just not applying for jobs.
And Susan, the new staff members he mentioned, that's for our district, I assume.
Well, we're asking for it we're saying we need it for our district. We're asking for new Green Thumb staff. We certainly have a lot of Green Thumb gardens, so. Do you want me, while you're doing that, to read the order of the expense items that we have currently?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry.
so, because the expense items is a very short list, but very important list. So number 1 was Parks maintenance staff. And the agency response was they recommend funding, but availability of funds is uncertain. Number 2 is recreation programs. The agency had the same response, recommends funding, but availability uncertain. Number 3 is forestry staff, which include money for tree pruning and stump removal. Same response, recommends funding, but availability uncertain. 4, additional parks enforcement police, PEP, same response. And then the one new suggestion is funding for additional green thumb staff, which is a staff that deal with our community gardens. And that's the whole, and there it is. So we can call green thumb number 5. You guys can change the order if you want, but for now, let's call it number 5. And I would say, are you happy with keeping that order?
I'm gonna, 2 participants raise their hand. Dan, if you could help me out and tell me who those folks are.
Kay and David Adams.
Kay and
Go ahead, Kay.
Yeah.
I would change just the order. I would put the green thumb staff ahead of additional PEP.
So you would change 4 and 5.
Yeah.
David.
I'm just, you said that Parks has money, but they can't hire people. If they have money, does it make sense to ask whom, give them more funds?
No, I'm saying that the reason they're so short-staffed right now, they're extremely short-staffed.
I understand, no. But
So
you're saying,
you saw the responses that the availability of funds, I'm not saying that they have enough money. I'm saying that the reason they have no staff right now is they can't hire people. I think everyone's aware that the mayor's trying to cut 30% from every budget. So we don't know what kind of funding is going to be available. And this is for next year. This is for next year. And Parks, even when they have the full staff, they never have enough money to hire as many people as they need.
okay, I was just wondering, because it sounded like almost you say they have money they can't hire, but they don't have, you're saying in the
you're
perfect
right.
situation, they would need more people anyway.
You're right, David. I was explaining that they couldn't hire, and it sounded as they could have had a lot of funds left over. They have both problems.
Keep them busy.
So for now, that Kay has suggested that we move Parks Informant down to 5 and Green Thumb up to 4.
Ryan has your hand up. Yeah.
I just want to second Kay's suggestion. I think that makes sense.
Want to vote on it?
Well, I'm going to try and vote on the entire thing. I don't see anyone, since this isn't necessarily a resolution, but just keep in mind that I know we get a lot of complaints about parks enforcement.
Yes. It's we're tremendously short, tremendously, particularly now where we have a tremendous amount of additional crime, and the presence of PEP makes a big difference.
I will just say that I have 2 buildings in the Sarah Roosevelt Park that are one dedicated entirely to PEP and one filled with PEP. And we have not noticed any appreciable help. They're very scared to come out into the park. So that may be different in other parks, but that's the reality here.
Okay. I'm not going to, suggest one way or another. I'm just saying that we have a shortage, but there's a shortage in every area.
Wow.
I didn't quite hear what you said, but my thought was, what's this park? The park on between A and B and 9th Street. 8th Street. That park has a drug problem. So I would kind of think that we want to keep that in mind.
Okay, PEP does not deal with, well, SDR Park has an even worse, you're right, Tompkins Square has a terrible.
Tompkins Square, that's the park. That is like known.
SDR has an even worse problem.
Okay, well,
Tompkins Square.
the one I know about is Tompkins Square Park is like very much known for, you do drugs, that's the place to go.
Well, if you want to buy drugs, you go to SDR.
Yes, we're the K2 capital of the city.
And it's not just K2. We have drug users in Tompkins Square Park. We have drug dealers in SDR Park.
And shooting.
Back to expense priorities, Daniel. About shootings and shooting.
I just wanted, I'm saying I work for the Parks Department and won't be voting on this, obviously, but just something to keep in mind. It is easier to hire officers in these fiscal times. Not that that should necessarily change our priorities, but it is something to add to the discussion.
I don't know, the police can't hire at all. They have more vacancies than they've ever had. I don't know if it's the same in park. Do you think it's different in parks, Daniel?
I think so.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
All right, so I'm gonna, switching it with Green Thumb, I don't think, I mean, it's still on our expense priorities, but I think unless someone else wants to say something that we can switch to order or add Green Thumb, since it's not in this current document. And Susan, that language you have, or are we just gonna keep it as?
What you mean for the I have the explanation. Well, I don't really, I just have I said that 15 were restored.
I guess the question I'm asking is who's editing the document?
Pardon?
Who's going to edit the document?
I'm taking notes, but I'm not editing the final document.
I had asked if someone would be able to do that.
No, I know, I understand. But Ryan, say what you just said again, please.
I was just saying that I'm taking notes, but I haven't ever edited the final document. I've just taken notes.
It's a question of moving things around. So like you would move, but you don't have it.
I do. I do have it here and I have it open. So,
okay, so
I
it
should
would
be able to track what we're discussing.
Okay, Green Thumb is already there. And if you want to switch, it would just move it above number 4.
Okay. Trevor, is there anything else to the process than me?
Nope, just moving around. The only reason why I asked is not so much that I or you or Susan cannot do it. It's just that I know that you use a different system, and sometimes the document gets. This isn't that complex in terms of fonts and changes.
Yeah, I'm not worried. We're going to format that, so I'm not worried.
Sure, right. So I'm not worried about Ryan making changes to it.
Good, thank you. Yeah, we're only worried about the order.
Right. All right, now down to capital priorities.
Okay, again, these are the same order as last year.
Now, we did get some information about, well, there is some information about our number 1 and number 2. Even though Pier 42 has opened that as a temporary deck as part of the ESCR mitigation, it is not a permanent deck and it's not designed to be permanent. It's not often that we get land given back to us as a park. I think it's important that we advocate for the rest of that space to become fully complete as part of the master plan.
Yeah. And that's added on, that's added on.
Right.
Additional funds needed to complete. That's what that's about.
Just in terms of dollars and that condition, really talking $80, $90 million just to understand how much is needed to complete a full park. Number 2, Susan, if you want to go into an explanation about that, I'm not sure.
So they thought they had funding for everything. There is funding, extra funding being given for the malls for from Two Bridges funding and from the NoHo Soho. But we just found out about maybe 3 or 4 o'clock today that that they don't think they will have enough funding still for all of the malls. And it is recommended that we advocate for more funding to complete all the malls. They are doing the middle section next. The section from Houston below will be the last. And so those are the ones that are unfunded.
Susan, one thing I need to ask, and I realize this, we have an additionally $2 million allocated for the Delancey Street Comfort Station. I don't know how, if Steve's answer
He said
changes
that was
that.
going to be, he said that was going to be a new RFP.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about that $2 million.
I wouldn't assume it's going to go very far.
I just want, no, just if it's, yeah, okay.
I think what maybe you're saying is that we still, even after we vote for this stuff, follow up with Parks to find out what happened to it.
Yeah, because it's hard
Yeah.
getting a straight answer from them, as you know.
Well, we kept trying.
And we got it at 4 o'clock. Community gardens.
We haven't heard.
Well,
any-
let's pause before we go through this. It might be a little easier. David, I don't know if you raise your hand again. David? Okay, we'll come back to you, David. Val?
Yeah, you said that number 2, you said that the funding is there for Houston to where?
No, I said it's not there for Houston below.
So the funding is not there for Houston and below. Okay.
Well, for, you know, they didn't
don't
give us
have
the
enough.
exact number. It's either 2 or 3 malls from Houston below.
They've basically indicated that they don't have enough.
But Houston and below. Okay.
Okay.
So, excuse me, Parks didn't give you, there was money that was allocated for this and for helping to fund the move out of the Stanton building. And they didn't give you a figure about that?
No, we don't have.
Because it's.
We did have, for Allen Street Mall, there was a lot. Steve was trying to figure out whether they had enough money by looking at what they had for each mall. And they came back and said they do not believe there's enough funding.
But I guess what I'm trying to ask is it sounded to me like there was a solid number.
No, we don't. We don't. Right?
So he didn't have that to give you.
Right, he does not know it.
Okay.
Okay, I think what you're asking is there was a solid number that came from that document for Allen Street malls, and I think Sarah D and some other things.
Right.
But they're saying that number one, they need to make sure that they follow up on that money, and I think Steve had indicated that, but also that it's not enough money.
And part of it is because there's been increase in costs. So that's why they don't think
Yeah.
they.
Yes,
enough
if
money.
you wait too long, things get more expensive.
Exactly.
But I just wanted to know if they had a solid number for
No.
all of that funding, and if so, where is it? So that this committee actually has something solid to think with about this. And I know it's not up to you. And if it was, it would be different, but it's good to know.
I think that's something the committee should follow up on. I don't think you need it for today for this, but I think you should definitely follow up on it.
Right, and I agree with Kate's statement. I think it doesn't change this, but trying to get those numbers from Parks was a bit of a challenge. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
Just challenge. All right, so number 3, community gardens.
We actually haven't heard anything from any of the gardeners this year. So I don't know if the gardeners on the committee have anything to say.
Kay has her hand raised.
We have a green thumb garden that I know well. And I do think water source is really vital. I do also know that many parks, including Sarah Roosevelt, have no water source at all in certain sections that really doesn't really work for planting things. So I'm just wondering if we could, I mean, I don't know, Jamal, if he's still on, he was going to do a survey, probably can't get to it, but I'm not sure it matters in detail for this, but I would just like to add parks that need water sources also be included in this, since we don't have hard figures for the green thumb gardens either. And I know I believe there were other parks that this was true of. So.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't add it to this because this is a green thumb line.
Uh-huh.
So if you want to add it, I would add it to the very bottom. It's not researched at all, but since we have 40 capital and it is needed, there's room to include that. I would do that. This parks water sources for parks.
Susan, even if we add it at the bottom, I'm sure, because I know parks around me don't have water sources, but we typically research this. So
yes,
we're not going to research it tonight.
No, it's unresearched. We have no idea what's funded, what's not, what plans there are.
Well, Jamal, if he's still on, may have done that. I just don't know because
It doesn't look like he's on.
Okay. All right.
All right, let's for the line of community gardens. I don't particularly like. Yeah, I don't like leaving stuff unresearched, but I think we can just leave that there.
Well,
for the community garden fund.
That seems odd to me if we're not going to research that we.
Well, this has been, the community gardens was researched a while ago. This is from before.
Right.
The question is, okay, for this portion has been researched, but we don't have any new information on this.
In terms of what was actually provided with resources.
Right. I don't know if they still need.
No response. Let's put it this way. If it had been funded, the response would have been that there were funds allocated, because they do that and other things. So the fact that it doesn't say funds allocated means that it wasn't funded.
And Chuck Schumer was also going to provide, I think.
This is just city money that we're talking about.
Okay.
So that's the other issue, is that when you research something, you're researching whether it's federal, state, or city money.
Okay.
Okay, Sarah D. Roosevelt needs $8 billion.
That's their estimate?
No, I was actually exaggerating, but that may actually be the number.
I just think it's important for the committee to know that there are two engineering firms, architectural firms that are, one of which was hired by the city to do something else, but that are trying to get access to that building to offer a free estimate of the minimal work.
So this should just stay on the way it is.
Yep.
Okay. Next one, Cherry Clinton.
Reconstruct Cherry Clinton Playground. Put on the list.
Yes, we went through that. Where's the one? We went through that with parks. Oh, I have that in front of me. Let me see. I have another sheet in front of me. So let's see what.
They say they are getting money, but we didn't get any other response than that. So do we keep advocating for it, or?
No, it says Clinton Cherry still need funding.
Okay, you're right. Sorry, I'm looking wrong.
Still need funding. So we should leave that on. I have another document in front of me to check also.
Yeah, and that's bordered by 286 NYCHA and LaGuardia. And that playground is still in need of money. Number 6, Coleman Oval.
And that still needs funding.
The new bathroom for Pier 35.
They don't even have it anywhere. So if you want it, you need to keep it on.
Yes. Someone raised their hand. I don't know if I missed it.
It's somebody in the public.
Yeah, it's an attendee. I don't, if you're.
Yeah, we'll go through this and then go back.
Next one is Tompkins
Tompkins Square Park, in-ground mini pool.
Mini pool, still needs funding.
Sydney Hillman Playground.
Still needs funding.
Columbus Park, including new fencing on east side of along Mobile
Still
Street.
needs funding.
Baruch Playground.
Still needs funding.
Kinloss Square.
Still needs funding.
Montgomery East Broadway Triangle area.
Let me find that. Still needs funding.
And that's the end of the list.
That's it.
So we're going to add Carlin. I guess you're gonna.
Yeah, now I had a question on the Kinloss Square. Didn't the DOT announce a project, but they never started it because of this COVID thing? I remember they made it, they were gonna extend the curb, so you're making it cross from the corner of Barriamont to the side of St. James and Chapman Square shorter by extending that curb.
That may probably be a separate DOT project, not a Parks project.
Okay.
There also is, you know, governor's funding if we ever find out what projects were picked.
But that again, that'll be separate from this.
Yeah, but they give us money.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay, is that it?
That's all I have. Right, 13?
Yep, that's it. So we did, I'm gonna say, Trevor and I met with Parks and we had all these, we went through it, each one extensively with the Parks Department. That's why I was reading off another list from the information they gave us.
Right, so with the exception of moving number 4, which is PEP down, and moving number 5, which would be Green Thumb staff. So they would swap. Are there any other questions about this particular list? And Carla, I'm gonna put your hand down unless you have another question. All right, Daniel, I've got a crowded screen. If you can tell me who's in the participant list who has a question.
April Summer. Should I?
You have to allow her to speak.
Do I allow them? Okay.
Hi, if we could go, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak, to the Coleman Park. If there's any way, and I realize I'm late to the party here because you've already, pretty much went over this long before I chimed in today, but if you can consider upgrading the dog park, which is simply asphalt and a fence.
So
it's the worst dog park I've ever, and they don't even clean it. They don't even sweep it. They don't pick up the poo. They don't do anything. It's horrible. I go there every day. It's really a bad park. If whatever you could do, if you can't do it this time, consider it for the future. But a lot of dogs go to that dog park.
So what I would mention, I don't, just in general, every September, we have a budget hearing, which we ask people to come and tell us the priorities because we could still research them then. And we also put this on the Parks Committee agenda every June and July. So I'm just telling this to everybody, to general information for the future. So we do want to hear the priorities from you. And those are optimal times to let us know so that we can research it, because sometimes we will find out, well, we're planning to do that, or, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay, so I need to check back with you June of next year?
So I'm telling you, every June and July, it's on the agenda. And also every September, we have a separate, totally separate, complete budget hearing. It's nothing except to hear from you on what your priorities are.
All right, thank you, Susan. I'll put that on my calendar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dan, you have any more questions?
No, that's it.
Nope, I don't see any other hands.
Okay, so that with the switch of PEP and Green Thumb, I think we can vote on this tonight, and then we can take a final roll call. So let's do I think we have to motion to adopt this. So if someone wants a motion to adopt.
And the district needs statement.
And district needs.
Motion adopt.
Second. All right, so we're gonna do a roll call vote for this, and it will also be attendance, but please stay on a couple seconds after you vote. Ryan, if you could take attendance and a roll call vote.
Yes. Trevor Holland,
Yes.
Kay Webster,
Yes.
Ryan Gillum, yes. David Adams,
Yes.
Yaron Altman,
President not voting. I work for DOT.
Carlin Chan,
Yes.
Catherine Freed,
Yes.
Valentina Jones,
Yes.
Robin Chattel,
Yes.
Daniel Kano,
President not voting, I work for the Parks Department.
Josephine Velez,
Yes.
Troy Velez.
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
That's everyone. Thanks, everyone. I'm glad we're able to finish this in pretty good time, but just keep in mind that next month, and we may be meeting in person, please be in contact with the office, not with me. The office will have information before I do about where we're going to meet. So please stay in contact with the office. We may go virtual, we may go in person. Go ahead, Susan.
Can I say it will be on the website?
Well, that's what I meant, and
All
it'll be on the
information
website.
On the website.
So go to the website. If you want to know where we're meeting, how we're meeting, it will be on the website. That's the best way to find information. But thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you,
See you,
Susan.
folks.
Night. Night. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
All right, I'm gonna end it.
Yeah, I can't get off, so end it.